What the fuck is up, Juggalos? This is the Murder Mayhem Show. I'm the host, Mitchell, and my top story, again this week, Fearless Fred Fury fucking rocks. I said it the day after it came out. I said it a week later on this podcast, and I'm saying it now again another week later for the third time in a row. I love it. Fearless Fred Fury, great album. Started out amazing, only got better and better each time I've listened to it. It's got so many great lines, like every time you hear it, you might hear a new line that you didn't notice before or something in the background that you didn't notice the first few times. Lyrics are amazing. I've listened to the shit like nonstop since it came out, from start to finish, or on shuffle, or selecting songs, or in the car, or at home, or on headphones. Every which way, I've listened to this shit up and down, and I love it. So if you've only listened to Fearless Fred Fury once or twice, I recommend listening to it more and more and more, because it only gets better and better. So I had to get that out of the way once again. But the big story that most people are talking about this week is the Billboard charts. So the charts numbers for Fearless Fred Fury came out, and ICP posted up a big graphic on their social medias with a rundown of the numbers here. Let's got number 2 on the top independent albums chart, number 2 on the Tastemakers chart. I'm not really sure what that is. Number 7 on the top album sales chart, number 12 on top digital albums, number 24 on top rap albums, number 26 on top R&B and hip hop albums, and number 44 on the Billboard Top 200. So that's good. I think the important takeaways from this are the number 2 on the independent albums and number 7 on the top album sales chart, which to be number 44 on the top 200, but as high as number 7 on the top album sales chart, says to me that a lot of people must be buying your shit. Like, that's where most of the people are listening to it are getting it, by actually paying money for that album. So that's good. I think that's pretty impressive, and I'm pretty happy with it. But I think we all, or mostly all, agree as Juggalos that none of that shit matters at all, right? I mean, yeah, it's fun to post the numbers and look at them and think about them and be proud of the ones that you did really well on. That's fun. But ultimately, I think most of us agree that the numbers don't matter. Like, the album is great. Even if it sold 2 copies and both people who bought it thought it was amazing, then that would at least be something. So to even be charting this well after so long in their career is just a big win as far as I'm concerned. But ultimately, I don't give a fuck what the numbers are or how well it sold. I've been having an awesome time listening to it, and a lot of Juggalos I've seen on the internet really like it a lot, so the shit is a big win. Now, I do think it's interesting to think about the numbers, even though they don't matter. I still had some ideas on how they probably could have charted up a few more spots higher. I'm not saying this would take them to a number 1 hit or even a top 10 hit or necessarily even a top 20 hit, but I think they could have squeezed up a few spots on the Billboard Top 200 if they would have just done a few little changes with the release. So I'm going to get into those now with the disclaimer up top that I already said that I don't give a fuck about the numbers. I'm super pumped for the album. I'm pumped that they're happy with the results. I'm happy with the results, but I would be happy no matter what they were, because it doesn't matter to me. So I just wanted to make that clear before I got into this whole chunk about how I think it could have charted better, even though the numbers don't matter. So number 1 thing I think they could have done to chart a few spots higher would be to have met the release date. When they gave the October 26th, I think it was, release date at the Gathering in 2018, they said it will come out on October 26th of this year. People were pumped. They were pumped about how soon it was. Like, I think they really lost some momentum when they delayed the shit back 3.5 months, 2 days before the release date. That would have been one thing to help them. Number 2 thing that I think would have helped chart a little bit higher, press tour. You didn't see much press from them at all in the weeks going into Fred Fury. The weeks going into Fred Fury were actually kind of fucked as it was, because you had Shaggy out on a tour by himself, and then Violent J still messing with the album. That's according to him on the Juggalo show. That's not speculation. That's according to Violent J. When he canceled his E&J tour, he did it to come home partially to keep messing with the album a little bit, as well as doing photo shoots and whatnot. But he was still working on the album up until just before the deadline. That was what he said exactly, was that he knew the album was done when he still had a few days left on the deadline, and he didn't want to mess with it anymore. So that shows you that they were tinkering with it pretty damn close to the deadline, like at least within a few days. So Violent J's in Michigan working on the album. Shaggy's out on the road doing the fuck the fuck off motherfucker tour at a time when they should have just been doing the press circuit. Like, let me read this thing from you. This is from a new interview, actually. This just went up on Yahoo yesterday, I think. I mean, after the album's already been released. But let me read this quote from Violent J here in this new interview. It says, "Our infamy is much, much, much bigger than our success. If we could learn how to turn our household name into money, we'd be billionaires." Well, that's interesting to me, because I know how you can do that. I'm telling you, if you don't know how to do that, then that's fine. And I'm going to tell you what you can do to do that. This is free advice to ICP if you're listening. This is how you turn your household name into money. By doing a lot more interviews before you have an album coming out with people that I'm sure would love to talk to you. Like, the only big podcast the ICP did for Fred Fury was with No Jumper, and that was because Adam 22 reached out to ICP first whenever it was announced that there would be a release party in LA on the release date. So then Adam 22 reached out to them and said, "Can I get an interview?" Clearly, they didn't have anything planned. This is all something that could have been taken care of if Shaggy wasn't on tour and Violent J wasn't still working on the album. They could have been out there doing podcasts, doing interviews with lots of people that I'm sure would love to talk to them just because of their names. And I'm talking about people like the Adam Carolla show. He used to host Loveline. Has a good relationship with ICP in terms of being guests on his show. So they could have tried to work that out. I want to see ICP on Charlemagne the God on The Breakfast Club. They've never been on The Breakfast Club, and I bet they could get on there. I don't think that those people would just say, no, fuck them. I bet the people with The Breakfast Club would say, that's cool. And think about dudes like Joe Rogan. I'm not a Joe Rogan expert, but I'm sure someone like Joe Rogan would love to talk to ICP just to talk to them because of their names, because of their legacy and their weirdness. Less to do about tell me about your new album, but more just to talk to them. And then while the ICP is there, they toss out plugs for the album. And in doing that, you absolutely would pick up some new sales. And maybe this is all something they could have done if they were free, instead of one guy on tour, one guy finishing the album who would have been on tour even if the album was done. So, yeah, they totally missed out on press opportunities. Howard Stern, that's probably a lock. I mean, I'm sure Howard probably has a long guest list that goes far back in advance, but there's so many podcasts and shows like No Jumper that would like to have ICP on just to talk to them. Like, even the ones I just named are like big names. You go even down just a little bit to like the less popular podcasts and shows and do interviews with them. It's like you could really get a lot of more exposure out there, but not an option this time because Shaggy was on tour and Violent J was working on the album. But that was my big number 2. Do a bigger press tour as opposed to no press tour before the album comes out. Number 3, and my final idea for how ICP could have charted just a few spots higher. Nothing major. A couple more sales. I say make Fury the first single and not WTF. I think Fury not only is a better song, but it's more represents what the album sounds like and what it's about. I think that would have been a stronger lead single. But instead of the way that Fury came out, it was like no hype at all. There was no hype by Psychopathic until maybe like the day before the single came out. So I think if they did each of those 3 things that I just said, I think they could have charted a few higher spots. But there's one overall thing that they could have done to make sure that even doing those 3 things is possible. And that thing is they shouldn't have ever announced a release date until the album was done. And that's what I would recommend to them next time. Don't even announce a date until you know that the CD is done. And maybe that turns into some kind of Dr. Dre detox situation where you just keep working on this shit and it never gets finished. But I don't think that would happen with ICP. I think they would know when it was done, and that's what I think they should do next time. Don't announce a date until you're sure the shit is done and ready to come out. You say that you know it was done when you finished it a few days before the deadline. Or what if you finished an album with no deadline at all? Then you would probably be really confident. So if it's done, you clear your whole schedule from there and you say, we're going to hit these shows. We're going to plan the release this way. I think that's how they use their household name, turn it into money. That was my piece on that. But again, it doesn't matter. We all know it doesn't matter who gives a rat's ass about the charts. And speaking of a rat's ass, how do you like that segue? I think one other small thing, like maybe it wouldn't help that much. I don't know, but it's just another thing about the release that I would have tweaked, and I've been saying this the whole time, and I stick with it still, is that Flip the Rat should have just been bundled with all physical CDs of Fearless Fred Fury, regardless of where you bought it. I think they should have just done the double packaging like the Death Pop packaging, but put in a Fred Fury and a Flip the Rat. Still don't put Flip the Rat up on streaming because that's the whole novelty of having Flip the Rat, and that's the cool ICP Juggalo of it all, the collectible part of it. But just getting the CD shouldn't be the annoying part. Like buying the Fred Fury and opening it up and getting the code to order Flip the Rat. There's people that are still not understanding how this works, I think, because I've seen people ask on the internet if there's a physical version of Flip the Rat, and there's only a physical version of Flip the Rat. So that's how you know that some people are confused about this, and understandably confused, I think, because it was just kind of a weird way to do it. And if you don't stay super plugged into all the websites and all the announcements that Psychopathic makes, you might be understandably confused about how this works. But buy Fred Fury in the physical CD, and it comes with a code in it that you put into the psychopathicmerch.com website, and then it allows you to order the Flip the Rat CD. So if you want a physical copy of Flip the Rat, and it's keeping you from buying Fred Fury because you want the Fred Fury that comes with Flip the Rat, don't bother. Just buy Fred Fury, use the code, order Flip the Rat, and get it that way. You do have to pay a little bit more when you do it that way compared to buying them both together. But so, if that's what's stopping you, then Okay, but if the reason you're waiting on buying Fred Fury is because you want a physical copy of Flip the Rat, just go ahead and buy it, because that's how you get Flip the Rat. I just want to make that clear, because I think there's still people that don't really understand how it works. And I don't blame them. I think Flip the Rat should have just been contained with Fred Fury, and then take the whole code part out of it. I think, I don't know if that would have helped sales too much. So as far as like how it relates to charting and stuff, maybe not at all, but it's just, I think that would have been a better way to release Flip. Another big piece of news dropping very soon is the Cypher, the next Psychopathic Psypher, they said is going to be dropping on Friday. So that will be very soon. And I think people are kind of curious who's going to end up on this thing, because I thought there was a time when it was said that this Cypher would have more than just psychopathic artists on it, but they're calling it a Psychopathic Cypher. So who knows if that's purely psychopathic or not. Either way, with the not everybody being on the last Psychopathic Cypher, meaning ABK was the only one not on it, but that means not everyone. With not everyone on the last Cypher, I think people are kind of curious who's going to end up on this one and who's not going to be on this one. And if there is anyone not on this Cypher that people are expecting to be on it, it will get talked about. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure it'll be the shit. I love that last Cypher, that Family Juggalo Love Cypher 2017. I love it. That's the best song that Psychopathic put out that entire year. That might be the best song that came out that whole year, if you ask me. I really like that song a lot. That 2017 Juggalo Love Cypher that basically debuted Ouija Macc as a psychopathic artist. He killed it. Everyone fucking killed it on that song. So all this to say, I'm looking forward to this next Cypher regardless. That'll be the shit. That's dropping on Friday. Something else dropping on Friday that I know nothing about. Ouija Macc making an announcement. No idea. He just put it out online. He said he had an announcement coming Friday, so who the fuck knows what that's about. I'm sure it has nothing at all to do with the Cypher. It's just a coincidence. But who knows? With Ouija Macc, there's always something crazy. And he could be announcing a new album or some shit. He's always working on something, so keep an eye out for that, definitely, whatever that is. Announcement coming from Ouija Macc on Friday. In some other music news, I think this is important to talk about. On February 23rd, it was the 20th anniversary of Eminem's Slim Shady LP. And I really wanted to spend some time to talk about that because I sent a tweet about it, and that was good. I was acknowledging the 20th anniversary, but a tweet just isn't enough because that is such an important CD to me, the Slim Shady LP. That came out in 1999. I bought that shit in a store as a 14-year-old boy, and it kind of changed my life. That was before I ever even heard of ICP, so Eminem was kind of my real introduction to the wicked shit, and I only bought that CD because I liked My Name Is. That was the single that really blew up for him when that CD came out, and I bought that CD, and I loved it. And before that, the rap I listened to was still pretty hardcore, like Tupac, but even Tupac never got as crazy as the shit that Eminem would say on that Slim Shady LP. I didn't know it was going to be that insane when I bought it. I bought it because I liked My Name Is, which is pretty crazy, but not as crazy as a lot of the crazier shit on that CD. So I really latched onto it. Like, I knew right away that I was an Eminem fan big time. I bought into it in a big way. And then Eminem only grew from there, you know, with the Marshall Mathers LP and whatnot going forward. But that Slim Shady LP came out just a few months before Jekyll Brothers. And Jekyll Brothers is the album that got me into ICP, like right after that came out. So my fandom for Eminem predates being a Juggalo even just by a few months, but I still love Eminem to this day. Big fan. Love him, even though he puts out stuff that I don't like all the time. Who the fuck does? So that's not an insult at all. I love Eminem. That's why I'm taking special chunk out of this time in this show to say congratulations to him. 20 years since the fucking Slim Shady LP, the fucking CD that changed everything. That album was a huge deal. I was a 14-year-old white boy. Of course, it resonated with me. So he's fucking my Michael Jackson or my Prince or my whoever the number one ultimate superstar of your childhood was. Eminem is like that figure in my life. I love him. So we all know how much I like ICP, but I wanted to take some special recognition just for Eminem there. The 20th anniversary, for fuck's sakes. So I got a few more good things to talk about. Last week, I asked in a poll, what is the best Joker's card of this deck so far? So I asked that on Twitter with 272 votes. 25% said Bang Pow Boom. 13% said The Mighty Death Pop. 8% said The Marvelous Missing Link Lost and Found Together. And 54% said Fearless Fred Fury. So Fearless Fred Fury killing it, getting more than half the votes, even split between three other Joker's cards. And the last I've said on this subject was the Mighty Death Pop is number one. That's first and last, what I always say on this subject, and I stick with it. But the other thing that I had said is I'm not quite sure if Fearless Fred Fury beats Bang Pow Boom. That was kind of the one that I was stuck on, because I've also expressed my low feelings for the Missing Link albums. So I knew that it wasn't better to me than Death Pop. I knew it was better than the Missing Link. It was kind of between Bang Pow Boom and Fearless Fred Fury for the number 2 spot. And I'm going to say, yes, Fearless Fred Fury is better than Bang Pow Boom. But you guys said in this order from most to least. I'll do it that way so it's easier to understand. 54% said Fearless Fred Fury. 25% said Bang Pow Boom. 13% said The Mighty Death Pop. And 8% said The Missing Link Lost and Found Together. So Fearless Fred Fury has stomped them all. So with 54% of people in this poll saying Fred Fury is the best of this deck, that's pretty good numbers. But this week, I have a new question, and that is, what is the better Wraith album, Shangri-La or Hell's Pit? Yes, these are the tough questions, people. This isn't going to be no obvious choice. Go to my Twitter, @MurderMayhemGuy. That's where you can vote. I retweet the poll every couple of days to try to keep it somewhere near the top of my timeline, but should be easy to find if you're a Twitterer. Go down to Twitter and vote on that, which is the better Wraith album. I've got my opinion. I'll let you know next week after you tell me your opinion. So check that out. I also want to plug my being on the Beneath the Dirt podcast. That went up earlier, a few days ago. That was fun. If you've ever seen me and Roan Bone collaborate on a video before, it always goes really entertainingly. So you can check that out on the Beneath the Dirt YouTube channel and also on the Beneath the Dirt podcast. I also was on Tales from the Lotus podcast the other day, so check that out if you want. But the real money of Tales from the Lotus podcast is watching it live, if you ask me. Go back and watch it later if that's your jam. But to me, the real fun part, whether you're watching it or you're on it, is doing it live. You can chat in the chat room, talk bullshit. It's just a great chill show. So those are two shows I definitely recommend, not just because I was on them this week, but because I like them a lot. It's Beneath the Dirt and Tales from the Lotus podcast. You can always find all my social media and shit, everything at murdermayhemshow.com. That's where the podcast is. Links for all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. So peep those out. There's also memes and shit like that. So I think that's it. Until next time,